Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for being with us today and to participate at the webinar, Enhancing Heating and Cooling Strategies at Local Level. My name is Giorgia Rambelli. I'm a coordinator in the Sustainable Resources, Climate and Resilience team at ICLE, Local Government for Sustainability, and it will be my pleasure to moderate this webinar today and to give the floor to the different speakers that are lined up to share with us their insight, but also their expertise and experiences coming from these amazing European funded projects that are with us today. Heating and cooling are intrinsically local and regional matters, and despite very positive signals for the take-up of renewable heating and cooling across Europe, many barriers are still remaining for achieving the goal of high-level renewable heating by 2020. The webinar today wishes to share insight, but also tips and tools and success stories on how to increase the diffusion of sustainable district heating and cooling in Europe at regional and local level. The webinar today is also specifically by one, i.e. Intelligent Energy Europe funded project, STRATEGO. STRATEGO has the purpose of creating and promoting multi-level actions for enhanced heating and cooling plans across Europe. It wishes to provide tangible support in developing national heating and cooling plans, as well as to assist local authorities in evaluating their heating and cooling potential and to find what are the priorities area for intervention to make sure that that would happen. But I will not go further with this because the first speaker that will be with us today is also a partner in this European project. His name is Erwin Cornelis. He's from Vito. He's an expert on energy policy, and he will present to us a little bit what STRATEGO has been doing. Erwin, are you with us? Erwin?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so I am making you the presenter and giving you the floor.
Thank you very much, Georgia. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present the STRATEGO project. Indeed, as you said, so it's about enhancing heating and cooling strategies at So the complete title is Multi-Level Action for Enhanced Heating and Cooling Plans. And what it aims, as you already said, as Mr. Rambelli already said, it aims at providing tangible support in developing heating and cooling plans, both at national level and both at local level. The project started 2 years ago, is now coming to an end, and now we are coming to the conclusions of the project, and I would like to share some insights with you. First, I would like to give some insights in a couple of slides and the support given at national level before giving more details on the support on local level. And the energy system of 5 EU member states has been modeled in a number of steps. And the EU member states that have been modeled are the United Kingdom, Italy, Romania, Czech Republic and Croatia, so well spread in Europe and also with a broad range of conditions. And the modeling steps are looking at decreasing the primary energy consumption by taking some policy steps, policy measures and policy steps. First, we look to the 2050 horizon, and then we look at the effect of the energy saving, so that's from the second to the third bar, and from the third bar to the fourth bar, we assessed the effect of deploying district heating schemes in densely populated area, taking advantage of the amounts of waste heat from power to power plants and waste to energy facilities, also from industry, also looking at the potentials of renewable heat, tapping it into the district heating grids to provide sustainable heating. And from the fourth to the fifth bar, there we looked at more rural areas, and there alternatives for fossil fuels were looked for. Predominantly heat pumps are popping up. And then there's also an integration with the electricity system and a further integration to end up with a new energy system for the future. These are the steps taken. Quite a lot of work 30 researchers worked in that. A lot of reports have been published in that, but the main result is that if you look to the graph from the United Kingdom, for instance, and the graphs for the four other countries look a bit similar, that there is as much potential in primary energy saving at the demand side as at the supply side. So the main conclusion from that assessment is that an integrated heating and cooling strategy both needs to look at the potential of the demand side and at the supply side. So those countries focusing solely on reducing heating and cooling by better insulating the dwellings actually miss half of the potential. I'm more responsible for another work package, and that work package is looking at enhancing heating and cooling plants at a local level. And in the next slides, I will elaborate more on that. The challenge within this work package is to demonstrate that that strategy that has been simulated for member states for 5 countries, that this can be realized in 30 cities. We take a number of steps for that. First, we map heating and cooling, demand and supply. Based on the mapping and analysis of that, we identify areas of priority for first intervention, and those projects have been identified. Those projects have been analyzed, and business models have been derived. It's not necessarily a feasibility study, but more the levies and the barriers, identification of the levies and barriers to realize those projects. These were or are still discussed with local stakeholders, and that output, those conclusions, are then an input to the local heating and cooling action plan for the targeted cities. In the next slide, you see a map of which cities are targeted by the STRATEGO project. There are 30 cities targeted, well spread also in Europe, with a huge variety in boundary conditions. Countries where district heating grids are well established, countries where they are not, for instance. And that makes it also very interesting to have that exchange of circumstances. Now, if we look to the first step and we look to mapping, and here we present some of the mapping, and at the left you see the result of the mapping exercise of Antwerp in Belgium, and the top of the town called Alsdorf in Germany, and in the south you see the map of Edinburgh in Scotland. Maps have been produced for each of the cases, and also in line with that, to help the cities, a methodology has been drafted for giving some guidance on where to look to produce those maps. When looking at those maps, for those 30 target cities, some observations can be made. And the main observation is that energy mapping at a local level is really a challenging task. Why is it challenging? Well, we have observed that there is a need for appropriate tools that are in development, but not well spread and not at hand for the local level. Also, there is a need for data. For the big installations, for instance, the bigger installations that potentially can provide waste heat, that's quite easy to spot them, to identify them, and to make an assessment more or less of the waste heat that can produce. Also, the district heating grids are well known, but for the diffuse items such as the building characteristics from which heating and cooling demand can be derived, also from which energy saving potentials can be derived, that's more challenging. Also, the renewable energy potential to map this seems to be more challenging. The next step looks at identifying areas for first intervention, and also projects have been defined. Within the STRATEGO projects, about 50 projects have been defined in that variety of 30 target cities. And what we do observe is that each of the steps that we saw in the simulation at national level is reflected also in the projects. And I just give here a list of the projects. So some aim at reducing demand, There was a nice example, for instance, on how much energy can be saved by better insulating residential buildings in Alba in Romania. For instance, at Brussels, we focused on mapping the heat urban stress and to give some input and reduction of the cooling demand. Some other projects target district heating grids, the majority of them, I would say. Some look at deploying new grids, for instance, in the towns Kortrijk and Alsdorf, where they start from scratch, where there was no grid at the present. Some look to expand existing grids, such as Novojičin in Czech Republic or Velika Gorica in Croatia. And some look at modifying the concept of the district heating grid, for instance, in Graz, where they would like to reduce the temperature so that other sources can tap in, and also in Osijek in Croatia. Other projects look at replacing individual heating and cooling, for instance, in the Limburg province in Flanders, where we have observed that over 60% of the heating comes from fossil fuels, and there we make a strategy to phase out fossil fuels. Some aim at tapping excess heat, for instance, in Italy and Antwerp, from industry or from waste to energy incineration plants, such as in Czech Republic in Karviná, or from a CHP plant as in Milan. Some others look at tapping renewable heat sources, various renewable heat sources, deep geothermal energy, for instance, here close by in Dussel, Belgium, or in Alsdorf, even also in a small Topusco in Croatia. Some others look at adding heat pumps to the district heating grids, also various capacity, or others look at integrating solar thermal in the district heating grid, such as in Grušovno in Austria and Zagreb in Croatia. And as a last step, some also look at improving the conversion of fossil fuels, meaning the replacement of heat-only boilers by or CHP, or like in Zagreb and other Croatian cities, by electrical boilers, to have a better integration of the power system and the heat system. Of each of those projects, 50 projects, we are in the process of developing business models, and we use the business model canvas for that, so which allows us to carry out this analysis in a concise way. And this is in a process that is still ongoing, which is not finished for all of the projects. And then we would like also look at the common barriers and levies over the different projects to derive some common lessons from that. As we said, we are at the end of the STRATEGO project, and also these tasks are not fully finalized. They will be finalized in a couple of months. So the preparation of the business models, discussion of this business model with the local stakeholders, and the consolidation of the results of these tasks to provide input to the local heating and cooling plans of each of these cities. And this will be finalized in a couple of months. But I would like to invite you to have a look to the website of the STRATEGO project, and especially there you can find information on the STRATEGO project in as a whole, also of the main results of the assessment at national level. If you have more interest in the projects of the different cases, I invite you to look at the fifth tab, which is projects, and then you have a tab projects description, and that leads to a page of to each of these cities that are listed over there, and some information is already given over there for you, and that's public to everyone. And here I came to the end of the presentation of the STRATEGO project. If you are remaining questions, I will be eager to answer this. So I now give you, Georgia, the word back.
Thank you very much, Irvin, for your clear presentation, and I would like to echo your invitation to visit the website and to take a look at the Pan-European Thermal Atlas that was developed, as well as to take note of the upcoming publication of these different business models that are being developed. I would like to continue going through the presentations, but before I leave the floor to Paul Kenny, I would like to invite all the participants to use the chat function that you can see as an icon underneath your the names of the different participants on the right side of your screen. You will see that there is a little hand icon, so please use that after the presentation to take the floor. We will unmute you and we will give you the floor to ask your question, or you can even start from now to already start to type your own questions using the chat function. There is also the possibility of give immediate feedback in case that you agree, in case that you would like the speaker to go faster or slower, through using the little feedback bubble that you will see underneath the names. It's a little cloud with a tick sign. So feel free to share with us your feedback and your opinion. So I would like then to introduce the next speaker that is with us. We have with us Paul Kenny. He's the CEO of Tipperary Energy Agency. He is a partner in the project SmartReFlex. He will tell us a little bit more about it, but it's a project that aims to increase the diffusion of smart and flexible district heating and cooling systems based on high shares of renewable energy sources in European cities. Among the different measures that this project is bringing forward, there is the aim to improve regional legislation in supporting high renewable energy district heating and cooling systems, as well as creating cooperatively owned companies for managing these systems themselves. So, Paul, I will give you now the floor, and I will unmute your microphone.
Thank you, Georgia. Hello, everyone. I recognize some of the names, so hello to the people I know, and hello to the people I don't know. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the SmartReFlex project. I'll just get it back to the beginning. And SmartReFlex, I suppose, has come from the need to export some knowledge from some of the leading district heating countries to some of the learning district heating countries. And that, I suppose, that's the fundamental component of SmartReFlex, is this learning. But it learns on a couple of different levels. It learns on a regional policy level, or in Ireland, a national policy level, and also a local policy level. And they're the policy part of the project. It also looks at capacity building, and it looks at supporting new projects to get up and running. So that's kind of the main goals of SmartReFlex. So really, the first thing I suppose to talk about really is SmartReFlex is trying to get the knowledge that is maybe very obvious and very widely known in many people's heads, but get it into policymakers' heads, so that instead of the discussion about how to do heat mapping, it's to tell people that we need to do heat mapping, and to tell the right people who need to do heat mapping at the right time in the right way. So it maybe is a little bit higher level than the STRATEGO project. So what we're trying to do is create a framework of legislation for the long-term decisions required, and to create the knowledge base and the understanding at policymaker level of why those policies need to be made and why they need to be for the long term. And while that might be very obvious to people around this particular group and attendee list, it isn't necessarily very clear in policymakers' heads. We ran a workshop with the Concerted Action group, and it was clear that a lot of the attendees from, we'll say, the non-traditional district heating countries were learning some things for the first time, which are now reasonably obvious to some of the people around here. So I'll talk through about how national policymaker actors need to be clear on the business case. But also then, if we talk at a local level, you know, there is a very, very important role for the municipal level and the local level in terms of mapping the heat supply and demand, so using the tools that Erwin may have talked about from STRATEGO, the organisation of the key stakeholders at a local level, so the big heat users, the big heat wasters, and the citizen and housing cooperatives and so on at a local level, and really looking at how the organizational structure, how that's planned, how that integrates with existing civic structures and construction management. And although I have a good typo there, it's about leadership at a local level, and that's what SmartReFlex is trying to engender. So I suppose there's a couple of the messages that are part of SmartReFlex that I'm just going to touch on. And really, district heating is a very expensive thing to do, and the infrastructure is very expensive, just like the infrastructure for gas, the infrastructure for electricity, and the infrastructure for water. So it only happens if you have an investment framework that drives money into the sector. Okay, so the question would be, what drives investment? So what does policy need to get right? It needs to ensure that there is a return on capital, and that is either citizen-owned capital or bank-provided capital. The ease of which it is possible to make a return, and the knowledge of that return. So if nobody knows you can make a return, then it's not very useful. And the more people who know how to make a return from district heating, the better. And the third, just like any other infrastructure or business, one needs to manage the risks. And while it doesn't necessarily, people might not think of district heating as a technically risky piece of infrastructure, it is, however, very prone to external risks, particularly fossil fuel pricing and the price of which customers can get energy outside of the district heating. So it's important that policy addresses all of those items. So if we talk about return on capital, we talk about the business case, or will it pay for profit if there is profit? Will it pay for all the development? Will it pay for risk management and insurance and testing groundworks and so on? And will it pay for the operations and fuel costs? And really the fundamental component or challenge with district heating is this idea of a split incentive, where the customer needs an incentive to switch from the existing fuel supply, but also the supplier needs an incentive to supply the customer. So they need to make a margin and the customer needs to make a margin to switch. And obviously, if the customer and supplier are the same entity, that margin decreases. And that's the idea of a citizen-owned or a cooperative-owned or a user-owned district heating network, which is obviously quite prevalent in Denmark. So just to talk a little bit on return on capital, there are a number of things that policy can do to address this return on capital. So if we look at the individuals versus the district heating, individually you've got fuel, you've got tax on the fuel, you've got operation and maintenance of an individual plant, and you've got the replacement cost of that plant. And from a district heating point of view, you obviously have the heat, the cost of the heat, and if it's waste heat, that's very small. You've got the operating and maintenance and the people who run the network. You may or may not have profit, and you have capital. And really, in terms of policy needs to get that scales tipping in the favour of district heating for 20 years. And the way to do that, while many people say district heating needs a lot of state subsidies, it doesn't necessarily. And the way to take cost is maybe to take the cost of that capital down by providing a municipal loan like they do in Denmark, where they're borrowing at 1% to 2%, versus maybe market accessible finance at 5%, 6%, 7%. And you could grant the capital expenditure, you could tax the fossil fuel again, as you do in some countries. You could subsidize the heat or insure the revenue on the heat with the feed-in tariff, or subsidize with the feed-in premium, or obviously make it non-profit and remove that whole block. But fundamentally, that scales needs to tip in favour of district heating from a policy point of view if governments wish to see district heating get constructed in their countries. And there is no other way around that. Fossil fuels are individualistic and cheap if you don't include the externalized costs. And obviously, a lot of the people around the audience here will have seen a lot of the International Energy Agency comments on the subsidization of fossil fuels. And while that continues to happen, district heating will be challenging without any government policy. So we talk a little bit about risk. If we just use an example of wind energy, which again is reasonably well developed in a lot of countries, the equity investors will want to see an 8 to 10% internal rate of return, or up to 15% in many places. The senior debt or the banking finance will want to see a return on their debt, which will be the European interest rate which they purchase money at, plus the margin they wish to make. In terms of management of risks, internal risks like construction, transport, ground conditions, the development costs, the grid connections, the so on and so on. They're all internal or manageable risks. You can identify all those risks and deal with them before you put your money into them by having a contract or an insurance policy or so on. But from a wind point of view, there's two things that are external to the wind development, and that is the price at which they get paid and how windy it is. And essentially what they do is you need some, well, maybe you do maybe you don't anymore, but essentially you need a feed-in tariff or a feed-in premium to guarantee the energy price, and you need wind. And the way they manage the risk in terms of wind is they have a large factor of safety on the potential variability of wind between one year and another, and they put insurance, essentially a big pot of money from windy years to cover the non-windy years, and that's how those risks are managed in terms of wind energy. So the same thing needs to be applied to district heating. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the key lessons that SmartReFlex has seen and that we're trying to bring to policymakers in Ireland, Italy and Spain in terms of ownership, transparency and pricing. And when we started this project, we had a very interesting discussion between the German District Heating Association, the Danish District Heating Association, and the following countries, or the follower countries around the table. And the Danish guys were talking about how district heating has a very positive image. The consumers are very engaged. They actively get involved in shareholder meetings. And district heating is getting investment in terms of new people and money and expansion and programs to optimize and so on. Whereas in the case of the German District Heating Association said that German district heating had a negative image. This is not my opinion, and I'm obviously relaying their opinion. It had a lot of issues around monopoly. It had poor image. It wasn't being optimized. Money wasn't being put into replacing networks and so on. And the fundamental component that the German district heating and the Danish district heating organization started to talk about was the original establishment of the companies. So who pays more, the unhappy German customers or the happy Danish customers? And the answer in many ways is that the Danish district heating customers pay more on average, according to a Euroheat and Power report, than the German district heating customers. However, because the Danish tax the alternative to a higher amount than the Germans, Danish district heating is cheaper than the alternative gas and oil, and German district heating is more expensive. So pricing is all relative to the alternative that citizens and consumers and businesses see. So if your pricing is set in such a way, if you increase tax on your fossil fuels to make your district heating more attractive, then people will be happier. So it's just a small point to note. However, there is one important thing, that the Danish customers vote on the main investment decisions, and they see a full breakdown of costs. They vote for the board, and if the board aren't doing their job, they get moved on, and so on. And they decide on operational efficiency projects and actions. So, for example, grant aiding people to replace high temperature systems with low temperature hot water systems, so that the return temperature is lower and the efficiencies go up. So they in effect set their own price by making cost related decisions, and they establish this trust between the district heating company and the citizen. So just to take a quick look at maybe that ownership model, essentially the comparison according to the district heating industry was that the Danish model was very much user-owned versus the municipal or for-profit, where money could essentially be taken out of the district heating company in Germany but not in Denmark, and the profits are returned in Denmark to either through a lower price to the citizens or reinvested in enhanced networks, more connections to newer customers, which brings down the overall cost to everyone, and so on and so forth. And one interesting thing to note really is, according to, again, a Euroheat and Power report, in Denmark you've got 70% waste heat, and in Germany you've got 90% waste heat. So you would think that the overall price that the German district heating companies need to pay for heat should be somewhat lower than the Danish ones. Yet, I suppose the conversation about price and acceptability is interesting. So some of the conclusions that I would have come to, or that SmartReFlex would have come to, and also has been in several other reports, district heating is hard to make money on, because if you increase the price too much, people will disconnect. Investors will not invest in the long-term improvement of networks, in solar district heating or pipe replacement or deep geothermal without the right incentives from a policy point of view. And their incentives are not necessarily subsidies, they could be guarantees. So for example, there's a new policy in Denmark where they are ensuring deep geothermal wells the cost of establishing the well, and they're removing the risk. The state is taking the risk on failed wells and so on. So it's not necessarily a subsidy if the well works out well. So some comments again from the District Heating Association of Germany, that they feel that little attention in terms of time or money is given to optimization, and therefore they feel that the efficiency of the systems are worse than they would be if people put some engineering time and money into optimizing the systems. And really, I suppose the conclusion really is citizen control, investment in efficiency and investment in renewables, and the savings versus the alternative drive satisfaction from the consumer point of view. So some of the key policy goals, only have a slide or two left, are, from a governmental point of view, identify the policy actions that look at the barriers to district heating and prioritize those in terms of what is politically acceptable as a national policy, because politically acceptable large subsidies for new energy projects is not necessarily politically acceptable in the current economic climate across Europe. So we can do things from a policy point of view that maybe do not appear to be big subsidies, are not big subsidies, but may in essence have the same benefit. So if you can reduce the cost of capital from 7% to 2% by providing a state guarantee or a municipal level guarantee, that could be the same as providing a feed-in premium of several euros a megawatt hour. So essentially the four kind of key policy goals are reduce the cost of district heating, the development of that district heating, and the heat supply and risks associated with those prices. So look as much at the risks on pricing as subsidizing the capital cost. Reduce the risk of people not connecting by addressing the alternative heat supply cost, i.e. the risk to the district heating company of people not connecting or people connecting and then disconnecting. And that is a huge risk as part of district heating, and you need to get that right from a policy point of view. The third kind of key policy action is ensuring that there is a municipal role in delivering the networks at a local level, and that is heat planning. So, you know, using the tools that STRATEGO have mentioned and others have mentioned, where all the waste heat and all the big heat users are identified, because they're the backbone and they'll be the economic future of a district heating project. Ensure that there's good stakeholder management by providing funding and capacity building and people to manage that stakeholder engagement process. And the third is incentivize an ownership or regulatory model that will maximize transparency and deliver effective management decisions at a district heating level, so that the future, the future long-term robust management of all those district heating projects or district heating networks will be done correctly and will be self-managing, and the state does not need to get involved afterwards. Last slide. So just in terms of the key lessons, so long-term policy goals, local involvement, trust, and regulation. And they're the kind of key long-term messages really from the SmartReFlex project. And that is the end of my piece. So I might hand back to Georgia.
Thank you very much, Paul. Very interesting presentation, and it's indeed a very interesting project. I think that beside the overview that you gave on the different incentives possible, what I found very interesting is this results on the exploration of the ownership models, and to see how user-owned driven sort of approach is more efficient in terms of, or at least perceived more efficient in terms of the investment, but also in savings. And speaking of including different kinds of actors, I would like now to introduce the next speaker of the day. Her name is Helena Nostrom. She's a Communication and Market Outreach Director for the Celsius project. She works for the Gothenburg Energy. Helena, are you with us? I will unmute you now.
Yes.
Yes. So I understand that Celsius Smart Cities as a vision, imagine an intelligent, competitive and livable cities where all the different actors, policymakers, developers, but also the citizens have a stake into the production of energy, but also in the way that it is distributed. So please tell us a little bit more about what your project has been doing. I will pass the ball to you right now. You should be able to select your own presentation. There we go. Thank you, Elena. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Georgia. And thank you also for inviting Celsius to participate in this fine grouping of organizations and participants, equally, and STRATEGO and the other organizations as well. Celsius is a co-financed demonstration and knowledge transfer EU project with a focus on district heating and cooling. Our goal is to have an impact on the increase of planning, implementation, and optimization of district heating and cooling systems in the cities within the EU. I work for the municipality-owned energy company, Göteborg Energi. My name is Helena Nordström, and I'm the Communication and Market Outreach Director in Celsius. I will speak briefly about why there's a Celsius project, who we are, and also what we do. Not that this is news to anyone in this webinar, but for us, I think it's also important to remember our basis for working and the goals we're striving at. And as was stated in the communication from the Commission, Energy 2020, and the strategy for competitive and sustainable and secure energy, the first priority there was energy efficiency in Europe. Of course, it also listed the necessity of reliable, secure, safe energy systems that are both competitive and affordable, and of course, the need of sustainable energy. And this we all know, but I still find the importance of reminding ourselves as we work in Celsius of where we're heading. And this picture is just a reminder of why district heating has a great potential when it comes to decarbonization and becoming more energy efficient. With district heating, we can use resources that will go to waste otherwise, a lot of the time. So we are not as dependent on primary energy as with other solutions. Interesting also is that in Europe, we have resources available that we do not use and integrate into our systems to its full potential. There is enough residual heat in the EU to heat all the buildings, but at present, only 13% of the heating today is supplied by district heating. So this is also an indication of the great potential of this type of heating solution. Celsius, as I mentioned, is a demonstration and information transfer project within the Smart Cities project within the EU. We are 5 partner cities. Gothenburg is lead partner, and together with London, Cologne, Genoa, and Rotterdam, we are working to have an impact on the energy efficiency within the EU. So we're a 7th framework program, and we are set to run for 4 years, although we have applied for an extension. So instead of ending in March of next year, we're looking to end in the end of next year, so December 2017. The budget of the project is 26 million euro, and the EU contributes just over 50% of that sum. The 50 circle indicates that we have a goal of recruiting 50 member cities that we are going to collaborate with. And within Celsius, we have 20 partner organizations. We are organized within, you can say, the triple helix, including municipalities, academia, with research organizations as well, and utility companies. But, of course, this is not all of the participants in Celsius. As I mentioned, we are looking to recruit 50 member cities, and in March of this year we reached 50, and at the present date there are 54 member cities in Celsius. And this is just a listing of the names of the member cities, and more information of them can also be found on our website. And I think this picture might be a little more interesting, just seeing the spread of them, that we are covering a large portion of the EU. So what are we offering our member cities? We can divide our offering into 5 parts. The expert group we have is represented through our 20 partner organizations that has the knowledge, the experiences of working in different and all stages of district heating and cooling development, maintenance, optimization, and so forth. And they have been part of accumulating information to our online wiki, which we call the Celsius Toolbox. The toolbox we have also divided into 5 segments, and we call them elements. So we have the Celsius Roadmap, which is a broad perspective of district heating and cooling development. We have the technical toolbox, which goes more into detail with the technical solutions for the district heating and cooling systems. And the social toolbox, which might be one of the more important parts of district heating and cooling, as we've heard from prior presenters also, that financing is quite a challenge. But we also have the policy challenges, the need of including end users, business models, and so forth. So these softer parts of district heating and cooling development are very important. The 4th element is our demonstrators, our demonstration projects. And the 5th element in our toolbox is Celsius Cities. And this is where all cities can share information about the district heating and cooling developments and the projects, not only the partner cities, but also, of course, the member cities. we launched the toolbox on the 22nd of March, and there is a webinar that we have posted on our website on the first page. So if you want to know more about our toolbox, there is information that you can have. So another offering then that we have to our member cities is that we have this network of lobbying and also collaborating together, but we realize the importance of policies on EU level, of course, national levels as well. We work mainly on an EU level, and for this reason we organize events in Brussels to elevate the importance and highlight district heating and cooling in Brussels. And we had the opportunity to work previously with STRATEGO and also with Rescue in EU Sustainable Energy Week last year. We also work with position papers, and they come from our work as we comment on policy information, policy consultations going on within the EU. So it started with the heating and cooling strategy. We have also produced position papers and then consultations on the directives, the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, Energy Efficiency Directive, Renewable Energy Directive. We also sent in our consultation on the bioenergy policy, and we are going to produce a position paper on that as well. So another offering then are our demonstrators, the demonstration projects, and they have been separated into 5 categories. So within the sustainable production category, we have waste heat recovery from different sources. And in London, which is quite an interesting new solution, is to recover heat from the underground, of course also from waste incineration in the industry. Also river cooling as a sustainable production. Another category is storage, where we have examples as a heat hub that has been implemented, for instance in Rotterdam, where they needed to expand their network, but because of construction difficulties, they were quite limited to do that. But as they installed the heat hub, they actually could increase the capacity of the network. Short-term storage in buildings, I will talk a little bit more about that. Another category is infrastructure. Of course, this is what is so important about district heating, is that you have the pipes in the ground. And we have examples within Celsius of a small network, and this is how all networks start. You start small, you build smaller networks or islands, as we can call them, and then eventually you can connect them and create a larger systems. And we showcase both small and large in Celsius. Another category is system integration, so you can integrate different systems, not only heat but also cooling, electricity, other systems that can function together. And I think as we talk about the difficulty of financing these solutions, that the integration of the systems become more and more important. How can we actually create our cities with the best solutions, where we actually use the synergies created within a city when we have so many activities going on and so many people living closely together. We have also integrated several municipalities in one network, which is showcased. And then our last category is end users. And of course, this is a very important category. And as Georgia mentioned in the beginning, that we also want to include the end users. And I think it's for both the producers to understand the end users' needs and for the end users to understand the benefits of district heating and cooling. We had a research study, not we, but a research study was done in Gothenburg a little more than a year ago, and it became evident there then that 50% of people that have their apartments heated with district heating, they didn't know about this. So it's a very well-functioning system, but there is certainly need to be more informative and let people know about this is actually the system you have, and create an understanding of how it works and why it is so functions so well, and why it is such a good solution for in many aspects of city vicinity. So in this category, we have climate agreements as an example, where the company does not supply heat per se, but a certain temperature to the end users. And we have the district for white goods. I will also talk about this one a little bit more. The three new demonstrators in Gothenburg all focus on new uses, you could say, of the heat. It's not about heating the buildings and the water as it traditionally has been done. And I think this also indicates the potential with this solution. It's not something that is limited to that, but it can also be used in different capacities. So we're using buildings for short-term storage in one of our demonstration projects, and this is of course to cut the peak loads, so that if we have enough buildings, we do not need to start up those fossil fuel burners that only are used when we have very cold weather in Gothenburg. And this is how we can also balance the demand and the production. The second, I should say, new demonstrator in Gothenburg is that we have connected a ship that is in harbor to district heating system. They used to just burn the bunker oils to heat the interior of the ship and also to keep the engines warm. But as they now come into port, they are connected to the district heating system, and they can turn off the engines. And of course, this has had a great impact on air quality in the local area. And the last new demonstrated in Gothenburg is that district heating can also be supplied to white goods. And we have about a little more than 200 washers and dryers connected to the district heating system. And of course, this decreases the need of electricity. You can use the lower grade energy than the way heat is. Okay, so another offering that we have to our cities are workshops. We have more and more turned into, or actually increasing the amount of webinars that we are offering. Now we are, starting this year, we are offering webinars monthly, and we pick topics that the cities are requesting, so that we respond to their needs, to their interest, to where they are in their own development of district heating and cooling systems. We have had quite a busy early summer with many workshops. We actually have one right now going on here in Genoa. And Warsaw should not have so many W's, but we've had a workshop there also in May, and we had planned one in Lyon for June as well. And as I mentioned previously, we will come back to the EU Sustainable Energy Week in Brussels in this year as well. So those were the 5 offerings, and now that we have created all these offerings, we have created this wiki, we have created this network in collaboration. We are looking to the future. What are we going to do with this accumulated knowledge? And in closing, I wanted to say that impact is one of our key words. we want to have an impact on energy efficiency, on decarbonization, and also the market uptake of district heating and cooling. And one of our deliverables in the project is called 2017 and Beyond. And this means that we're looking now for ways for shelters to continue after December of next year, so that we can keep sharing information about district heating and cooling and also bring cities closer together in this work that we do so much better when we do it together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elena, for the full overview of what the vision of Celsius is, but also for the very practical examples that you have shared with us with your demonstrators. I'd like now to give the floor without
Georgia, I couldn't hear you anymore, actually. So I don't know if it's a problem from my...
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. Sorry. Yeah, I was just introducing you, saying that you are a partner in Mayors in Action and that you are an energy expert at STRATEGO in Italy, and that you will take us through what the Energy for the Mayors in Action project has been doing in the past years, and how it is supporting local governments, territorial coordinators and supporters in assisting their municipalities through practical examples of actions and methodologies to implement their own sustainable energy policies. So the floor is yours. You already are a presenter. You should be able to select your presentation. Here we go.
Okay.
Thank you, Philip.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all and to STRATEGO for the opportunity to present our project Mayors in Action. I work for STRATEGO, which is a private consultancy firm based in Padova, which is in northeast of Italy, nearby Venice. We present today a case of Mayors in Action. As you can see, Mayors in Action is a project funded by Intelligent Energy Europe. Its extended name is Empowering Covenant Mayors, Coordinators and Supporters to Assist Municipalities in Implementing and Monitoring their Sustainable Energy Action Plans. What does this mean? This means that, as you know, the Covenant of Mayors has signatories, which are usually municipalities, but it has also coordinators and supporters, which are second-level organizations, such as regional authorities, provincial authorities, or NGOs or other kind of organizations, which support the signatories. So they support the municipalities in implementing their sustainable energy action plan. So the major aim of Mayors in Action is to enforce and provide instruments to these supporters and coordinators for supporting on their turn the municipalities. Actually, in this webinar, I will be talking a bit more of a special case study that we have found and that we are proposing in Mayors in Action, which is the case study of Estet, which is focusing on district heating, actually. Just one hint is that in the title of the presentation and in the introduction of Georgia, you've heard about tools that we can provide. You will find these tools in the handbook of Mayors in Action, of which I am pasting you the link in the chat if it does work. For the moment, it doesn't work, but I will paste it. I will provide you the link as soon as possible. Now, We can go straight to the case of Este, district heating. In Mayors in Action, we have identified 14 possible actions for being supported by for municipalities, and district heating is one of these. The case I will talk to you about is Este. Este is a small medium city in the province of Padua, 70,000 inhabitants. It is around 30 kilometers away from Padua and 60 kilometers away from Venice, so that you can all understand where it is. 17,000 inhabitants is not such a big city, but the case we will see is quite important for the city in itself. What is the main characteristic of the municipality of Este? It is that it owns a waste management company for 51%. 49% is of private investors. So now we will see a bit of what has been discussed in the previous presentations. This is a particular model, a particular business model, which can be interesting for the district heating case. Since 1995 and 1996, when Italy has started the main waste management policies and the strong policies on recycling, Este has been a bit of pioneer in this, offering also the possibility of having an important waste management plant in its territory. So it had a landfill in the beginning, and then since 1999 it has been working on a composting plant. So the landfill is now closed, and we will focus on organic waste management. This is one interesting thing. I think it could be a good point of discussion, because we've heard in the previous presentations the use of waste for heating. In this case, we are not incinerating waste, but we are using anaerobic digestion, and we're using organic waste. So we have a picture here of the plant, and it is quite a complex plant. So it has selection and composting facilities, anaerobic digestion, water biological treatment, and also phytoremediation plant and green gas, with nursery for plants. This was a project funded by the Veneto region in 1999, which funded all these facilities. So we have the waste management plant with composting plant with quality compost production. We have controlled landfill. So the landfill is currently closed, but we're still extracting biogas. And we have a cogeneration unit of around 1.5 megawatt thermal. We have an anaerobic digestion plant with the first station has 2.45 thermal megawatts. And in 2008, two other CHP plants were installed. One is fueled with biogas. It has 4 engines for a total of more than 5 megawatts. And we have a backup with natural gas, a backup engine with natural gas of more than 6 megawatts. This is a very easy scheme of what is the process. I'm sorry, it is in Italian. Didn't have time to produce a new one in English. But one interesting thing is that the core of the organic waste management plant is anyway the composting plant. Actually, we don't have a passage through the anaerobic digester and then to the composting plant. but the waste goes straight to composting. Before going to composting, it is pre-treated. This pre-treatment, which is the yellow rectangle, is actually a squeezing facility of the organic waste. Then the liquid part, I don't know if leachate is the right word for this. Probably somebody will be able to help to find the right term. But the liquid part goes to the anaerobic digester, while the solid part goes to composting directly. So it is a bit a particular process, and they're trying to optimize it and to have a further digestion before sending it to compost, because it is evident that it was not perfectly efficient as it was in the past. We have an integration anyway of organic waste with waste from food production and sewage sludge waste and urban green waste. So it's quite an integrated incoming. We will focus on the thermal energy, of course, coming from the whole of the plant, because this is what today's topic is about, is the district heating plant. So the municipality of Este and SESA, which is the waste management utility, they have set up this district heating line. It was at the beginning, then it's becoming a little bit a grid now. One of the interesting parts is that this business model actually is starting from a heat offer. So actually the heat is there. We have to manage waste somehow. We know that anaerobic digestion is one of the most efficient ways of managing waste. So we can say that this district heating line started actually from the fact that we had this kind of energy which needed to be transformed and which needed to be used. Of course, incentives about renewable electrical production somehow helped in this process, even if waste can be considered only partly as a renewable resource. And the first stage actually was realized in 2008. It is 6.5 kilometers, partly in Este municipality and partly in Ospedaletto, which is the nearby municipality. In the beginning, only public buildings were connected. So let's say that here it was only a question of making some internal economies. So the municipality said, okay, please connect my own buildings to the line, and then we will see. Also, it's interesting to see who were the investors in the first part. The total is around 5 million. 3.7 million, which was partly covered by a funding from the Veneto region, so institutional funding, and partly from the utility itself, from SESA itself. Second functional stage is being right now was recently started, and it started to connect also some private buildings. So we have, for instance, the Komatsu, which is a very important producer of utility machine. You can see in the picture on the right an example of an excavator or something like that. The second stage has a total power of 12 megawatts and had an expenditure of 6.5 million euros. Here also it was partly funded by the Veneto region, which of course decided politically to support district heating, and this is also in its other funding instruments is evident. Now we have this is the whole of more or less the whole of the municipality of Este. The blue line is the first part. As you see, it was quite a line going in the center of the city and fueling or heating only public buildings. The second stage is the light blue one, and it also reached some private commercial or productive sites. So actually SESA and the municipality have started to make some business out of this initiative. The red line is still in project. Third stage is, as I was saying, is at preliminary stage. It wants to connect the old town and Mejaro neighborhoods. It aims at installing a further capacity of 4.5 megawatts, and the estimated expenditure is 11 million. Este has applied together with the province of Padova to an Elena project, which is funding this stage of preliminary planning, but the waste management utility SESA is anyway available for funding parts of the new of the third stage. So it is interesting to see that we had always some institutional funding, such as European Union or the Veneto region, but it was always requested to have an investment by the municipality and the waste management utility. And last thing is that in the future, this is a bit particular, as you perfectly know. Upgrading to biomethane is a very interesting new business, but it can be a little bit in contradiction with district heating. So this is, the SESA has launched a new upgrading facility, but actually I'm not sure at what extent they would like to use it, because of course now they have the district heating grid, which needs to be fueled all the time. So I think they have made appropriate calculations. I'm sure about that. I'm not sure about the numbers, but probably we will have a bit more a clear idea in the future. But actually, the strategy is this one. One point which is important to be said before closing the presentation is that having an organic waste management facility in town or a little bit outside of town can create some problems, and we cannot hide that in Este there is a dynamic of conflict regarding the waste management facility, and the fact that the utility makes some business out of it is something which the local community sees a little bit not in a very positive way. Still, the municipality owns 51% of the of the utility. So it's mostly the majority is owned by the community anyway. But it is important to say that anyway, there are some conflicts. Still, we think that this is an interesting case about waste going to energy. I hope I will be able to answer to all your questions. I'm available here for any questions, and I will thank you very much for your attention. Last slide is that we, ST is planning to have 30% of its commitment to the Covenant of Mayors covered by district heating line. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Federico, for your good presentation. Also, from my side, I'd like to point you to the Mayors in Action website. You will find the handbook that was mentioned at the beginning, and inside you will find a lot of success stories, such as this one that we just heard from ST on several different types of initiatives related to sustainable energy action planning. So this is the idea, to cluster together different methods to reach the same aims of implementing these actions. So I would like now to open the floor for questions until the end of our session. While you pencil down your question and you raise your hands, or you just type them in the chat, I would like to read the first one that we have received. Only a moment. So Puy Dominguez from EREN, the Regional Energy for Agency of Castilla y León, asks the speakers, we are very concerned for the heat pump efficiency in the future. If these heat pumps increase their efficiency to, for example, 600 or 800% in 10 years, perhaps for the consumers could be more cheap to use electricity for heat their houses than to pay to this reheating company. And now comes the question. So what would be the correct decision? Develop a new district heating system, or wait for the next heat pump generation? Who wants to take the question? And okay, while the speakers decide who would feel comfortable. Oh, Erwin wants to take the question. That's really good. Erwin, I will unmute you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, thank you. Well, it's a relevant question to what extent we can have an entirely electricity-driven energy system. I can't speak for the south of Europe. I'm here at the middle of Europe, around Brussels area, and we have, of course, a higher heating demand than in the south of Europe. Nonetheless, there are some sectors within society that will need heat at a high temperature level. For instance, energy-intensive industry. We will also produce waste. We will produce it now. Also, within a couple of centuries, we still will produce waste, and waste incineration is still a step that will be necessary to get rid of some fractions of waste. So I do not think that we can phase out all fuels within the society, whether they are fossil ones or sustainable, more sustainable ones. And once we need fuels, we produce heat, and then we might consider to produce heat in the best way. Also, when generating electricity, of course, we do know that there are photovoltaics and wind turbines, which are intermittent. Hydro is also still there to balance. Nonetheless, I think that we also will need fuel within the coming decades to generate heat and to balance out the power grid together with the intermittent sources. And when we produce heat, to produce electricity, that should be done in the best way, actually in cogeneration mode. Then we are in the need of a heat market to get rid of the heat And that also having a heat market next to the electricity market, in my point of view, gives a more balanced energy system and provides and gives more flexibility of integrating more renewable energy sources. So that's my point of view, but the circumstances in the south of Europe compared to the middle of Europe, compared to the north of Europe can differ considerably. That's my answer. I hope it helps.
Thank you very much. I see that also Paul would like to contribute. Paul, I am unmuting you. There we go.
The other, I suppose, comment really is about the density of use. So where you have low density, heat pumps will certainly feature very heavily. Where you have waste heat and higher density, obviously district heating will make sense. And I think as we plan our heating going forward, which is not something that Europe has done really up until recently with the heat roadmap for Europe, I think we will identify both heat pumps and district heating as our heating futures. And I don't think it's a question of heat pumps or district heating. I think a very dense urban area can't, with historic buildings, will never be filled with heat pumps. If they are filled with heat pumps, it will be a district heating heat pump, I would suggest.
Thank you, Paul. I hope these answers were satisfactory for Pui. Maybe if you want to continue, I see that you have a microphone. We are happy to unmute you or to just read out loud your questions. Thank you very much. Is there any other question coming from the audience? I will suggest you take advantage of the great speakers that we have with us today and of all the experiences that they have. While you think about that, I'd like to read out loud a comment that comes from Irvin, actually, to Federico. Irvin says, your presentation is very interesting. We look at a similar configuration in Belgium. The main barrier is that the waste treatment plant is located in a very rural area and a quite a distance from clusters on heat demand. Federico, what was the decision? How was the decision of us to take, and was it just because the Veneto region pushed in general for investing in heating and cooling, or what other kind of consideration were put into place to define where to construct this plant?
Well, the first reason is that we have to go back a few, probably up to 50 years ago, when the first landfill was built in the place. So there's a bit of historical issue. The landfill was built right in the middle of the border from Este to Ospedaletto Euganeo, so in between two municipalities. And then actually it was 3 or 4 kilometers outside the municipalities then, but then the urban area grew towards the buildings and towards the facilities anyway. So it is a bit a particular case of being so near the plants, the waste management plants, to the urban areas. This is, of course, a positive side of the question, because then you can have district heating grid. But as I told you, it is also a matter of conflict, because of course the environmental impact of the waste management facilities in terms of especially of smelling and of heavy traffic going up and down the plant is an issue for the local population. The fact of the policies in this case was not so determinant at the end, because the policy is for the district heating grid, actually. but it was also in the beginning for the waste management plan actually. But I think it was more a historical issue of the municipality of Este and Hospitaletto agreeing of putting the landfill in the middle of the two municipalities. We have worked on the biogas heat project, which was aimed actually at valorizing the heat from biogas plants, which are often in rural settings. And of course, the distance from heat users is a major barrier for doing business. Sometimes it could be more profitable to think about some other income generating activities, such as, for instance, wood or wood chip drying, or for instance, greenhouse heating, or some other kind of productive use. Of course, being so far away from urban centers is a very major barrier. In this case, the counterpart is that you have to manage the conflict about environmental impact. So this is quite an issue, and the right balance is actually very difficult to be found.
Thank you, Federico. Irvin, would you like to ask anything else since we have you back now among the panelists?
No. Am I unmuted?
Yeah, you are.
No, actually, I would like to thank Mr. De Filippi for his answer. And my consideration is that waste treatment needs as much planning and well-considered planning as heat, and especially in those countries which are not well advanced in waste treatment for the time being, where there is still a lot of landfilling going on. I would like to add this as a final conclusion.
Thank you very much. We are getting close to the end of our time. Would anybody else like to share a question? As I said, you can just raise your hand. You'll see the little icon there, and I can unmute your microphone, and you can speak directly to our speakers, or you can type your question in the chat box, and I will read it out loud for you. In the meantime, I'd like to share with you a comment that comes from Stefan Kempeners. He's from Interleuven, an association of local authorities, and he was sharing with us that within the Mayors in Action project, the Tipperary Energy Agency is actually part of a twinning and coaching scheme with Interleuven itself. So if you are also interested in learning more about the possibility of coaching and twinning on sustainable energy actions, please feel free to visit the Mayors in Action website and to get in touch with Federico. I can see another question from Irvin. Yes, Irvin, please go ahead.
Well, thank you for giving me the word. As you mentioned this about twinning, thank you for the comment from Interleuven. I did not elaborate this within the STRATEGO project, but the STRATEGO project also provides coaching between learning countries and experienced countries. And we have the pleasure of being twinned with Gothenburg, so that creates nice links between the STRATEGO project and the Celsius project, and that exchange of experience across Europe is very instructive to all stakeholders, and that is really some valuable part of all these European projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Irvin, and I see that there are more questions here again about, yes, if we will upload the presentation. Yeah, they will all be available online, and we will also share the recording of this webinar, and you will find them posted for sure on the STRATEGO website and on the Mayors in Action website as well. We can send you the link after the event, or you can just have a look at the website themselves. If there is no other comment or question, I think I would like to close this webinar with a final slide on upcoming opportunities for you to save the date. So happening soon, there is a session taking place during the high-level policy conference at the EU Sustainable Energy Week. We heard it several times today, also mentioned by Helena from the Celsius project perspective. The event is organized with by Your Heat and Power. The title is The Heat is On, Energy Union from Principle to Practice, and it will take place on the 15th of June 2016. We will also like to ask you to watch this space and to have a look at the upcoming events in September. We are planning a breakfast of sustainability to take place in Brussels, specifically on the topic of heating and cooling. And then finally, coming soon, the STRATEGO final workshop taking place on the 12th of October 2016 in the framework of the Open Days. And last but not the least, if you're interested in discussing more about local renewables in general, but also in a session focusing on heating and cooling, you're all warmly invited to participate to the Local Renewables Conference 2016 taking place between Freiburg and Basel, organized on the 26th to 28th of October 2016. That's it from my side. Please stay in touch with us. I would like to leave you with our final thank you to the speakers. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. We really enjoyed your presentation, and we are happy to collect any other question that will come from the participants. Please feel free to get in touch with us, and we hope that this was valuable for you as much as it was for us. Thank you very much once again, and I wish you all a lovely day.